to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching today. I just wanted to have a brief conversation with you about something I think that a lot of people tend to feel from time to time, that we don't talk often enough about in the sense of how it impacts our communications, and that thing is anxiety. Feeling anxious is right now, I think it's just in the air. There's a lot of fear happening. There's a lot of people who are worried about their life. They're worried about their work. They're worried about their health. They're worried about their families, their finances. No wonder, all the way down to their freedoms in the state of the country. No wonder people are feeling anxious. But there's one thing that I think that we need to be aware of is how that anxiety is impacting the way that we communicate with one another. Because what I'm finding in a lot of our conversations is that it's really driving what we say. So what are just some of the basic signs that anxiety might be having a negative impact on the way that you relate to people that you're trying to talk to? And this could be impacting you professionally. It could be impacting you personally. And we have to really recognize anxiety for what it is. Truly is mental illness. Some of us may have anxiety disorders that make us feel like we have to gain control of the situation constantly. There's this pressure, this fear, this angst that's controlling us. And sometimes when we are talking to people, even especially people that we care about, we're feeling that much more anxious. So just one of the signs that you are struggling with anxiety and it is controlling your communication is when you are struggling to listen. Now, how does this sound? This sounds like someone who could, for starters, be interrupting constantly. You're so anxious to get your word out and to say your side and to put your part in that you're not allowing the person the patience to fully complete a sentence and fully complete what it is that they're trying to communicate to you. This happens a lot. Sometimes our brains work a little faster and we're processing information and we want to speak as quickly as we're taking the information in. But if you are struggling to truly give someone the respect that they need so that they can finish their thought, finish what it is that they have to say, and then you can speak and say your side, if that's truly a struggle for you and you find yourself interrupting and interjecting a lot, even by accident, you might be struggling with some anxiety. And there's nothing wrong with recognizing that, so that way you can get a handle on it and just saying, I'm feeling anxious, deal with it. Remember, the thing about anxiety is that that's up to you to manage. It's not up to you to impose it on other people. So you have to be mindful of the fact that you're dealing with some anxiety, and you have to say, hey, I'm anxious, let me adjust myself and prepare myself to fully listen and take in what this other individual has to say. So it's great on the side of listening skills, even if you find your mind wandering. Like sometimes we're listening to people through our feelings and through our fears, and we're struggling to not interrupt them because we're trying to control the conversation. And so if you are struggling with these controlling issues and you want to control the conversation and control the narrative, that's another sign of anxiety. Another thing that you can, I would say, are struggling with anxiety is if you're very defensive. Even in your personal or professional relationships, the thing about anxiety is that it's often a exaggerated sense of what is happening, so you may not always be hearing things right. If you find yourself being defensive a lot, you've got your walls up all the time, you think that someone is attacking you constantly, and you're triggered during the course of a conversation, the thing that you have to remember when it comes to anxiety again is that it's up to you to manage your triggers. It's really not the burden of the other person. It is very kind if they do that, and it's polite if they do that. And I would recommend that if a person knows you and they know what your triggers are, that they would be respectful when they're trying to speak to you. But if they don't know, you have to remember that your triggers are on you to manage. And so if you find yourself defending yourself a lot, and this is happening from one conversation to the next, or maybe it's happening with a particular person, then think it through. I met a guy once that I could tell now, and trust me, I've done this work on managing anxiety. So I fully understand where a person's coming from. I'm not talking to you about this because I'm perfect in any sense. I'm talking to you about it because I've been there and I've had to learn how to do these things and these techniques. But there's a man that I met. He was an attorney, and he was always very good at stopping and pausing before he responded. Now, it was kind of awkward when he would do that. And very, very awkward. It would be maybe about 5 to 10 seconds of awkward silence. But after I did the work on myself, of working on being anxious and feeling anxious and allowing that anxiety to guide my communications, I recognized it as a technique of someone who was learning how to manage themselves and really take the time to think before they speak. And so now I respect that he took the time to really calculate his words, process what I was saying before he had a response. And that is the difference between responding and reacting. Take a moment. Sometimes another thing you can do is ask questions. If you tend to be defensive or you feel like you're going to be in this mode of defending yourself, you might want to go down a series of questions and make sure that that's really what's going on. And you have to know that you're dealing with anxiety for you to even want to do these things. Otherwise, you think that your sense of what's happening is real and you're going to react in a way. And that may not necessarily be what's happening in the situation. So take the time to ask questions to really assess the intent of the other person that's speaking to you before you go down this path of highly defending yourself. Another thing that you may do, and this is, I think that everyone has been here, and again, I'm not picking on those of you who struggle with anxiety because I think that it's very common. But another thing that you may do is that you're always giving advice that no one asked for. If someone can't simply just talk to you and maybe express to you that they're struggling with a problem, without you just immediately interjecting and giving your advice, then you may be struggling with anxiety. And so you mean well, of course. I have parents that do this all the time. They mean well. They love me very much. They want to help me and they want to be there for me. But I was just talking to them, just making conversation there immediately. If I say, for example, I'm going to cook dinner tonight. They're like, oh, you should cook this and you should cook that and here are the ingredients. And, you're feeling anxious. You're feeling anxious. And so if you struggle to just listen to a person and hear them out, hear their heart, see where they're at, and maybe this one question can change the course of that entire conversation, stop and ask them, hey, how can I support you? Before you give advice. They might just say, I'm just looking to vent right now. And which is honest sometimes. And there's a lot of times I have found this, and I've been this person, guys. I've been this person that is always giving advice. I've been an addictive problem solver most of my life, so I completely understand. But what I have found is that I had to learn and stop and ask the question, how can I be there for you? Or how can I support you? And about 97% of the time, they just needed to vent. And so, my need to constantly give advice, and then I was irritated for people who didn't take my advice. I really reduced a lot of my load and the pressures that I put on myself to think I had to solve someone else's problem. So learn how to listen. Learn how to respond and not react. The thing about being anxious is, and when you speak out of place of anxiousness, and I've said this, anxiety tends to distort reality a bit, just a little bit. And so sometimes we give advice because we're trying to figure out how to make a world that's easier or safer or nicer for us to live in or be in or coexist in. And so sometimes that's the pressure in the back of our head that is causing us to spew out advice that no one asked you to give. And so think about that, in a controlling sense. And I always say this, if you know better, once you know, but you can't do better, this is always a great opportunity for therapy, always. So there's nothing wrong with focusing on your mental health because, again, anxiety is a huge problem right now. It's in the air. There's a lot of pressure being put on people to feel anxious. And so it's okay if a little treatment is needed. But the thing about anxiety and speaking from these places is that, again, if you don't have a good sense of reality, your likelihood to say something that's going to offend someone else is very high because dialogue has to be honest, right? And if you're not even in the same reality as the person that you're talking to, then you're likely going to say something that is going to cause a problem. So sometimes, if you find yourself bickering a lot, it could be a spouse, it could be, at work or whatever the case may be. You're feeling a lot of pressure, you're feeling a lot of anxiety. Really stop. Think before you speak. Learn how to respond and not react. Ask questions to inquire the intent. Ask questions to make sure that you understand the situation before you respond to it. Ask questions to assess whether or not your advice is even necessary. These are the sort of things that will really help guide your communications to make sure that the thing that you actually say is going to help the situation at hand. Not how you're processing it, not what you think is going on, not what you think is happening, and that pressure that you feel to help or to interject or to interrupt, or those things that we're tempted to do when we're feeling anxious. But this helps you to be a better communicator. And when you listen, and you listen well, you earn the right to have the right words to speak and to truly change the situation for the better. So anyhow, again, I've said it again. If you know better, but you can't do better, go and get some of the help and the support that you need so you can be a better communicator. All these sorts of things help us to create a wonderful world around us of peace. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Please like and share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and visit my website at tiaramey.com, where you can purchase a copy of my book. It's called Canceled. I also have a communication planner for couples. So if you're in a relationship and you'd like to learn how to plan out some of those things you say and respond and not react, you can go to my website and purchase that planner, and it will help you and guide you to have the best possible words to get the best possible outcome out of the situation. Again, thank you for watching, and hopefully we will chat again.